Hello, my name is Grant Harrison, and I'm here to summarize the 2018 article by Alphey and Bansall, Genetics-Based Methods for Agricultural Insect Pest Management. The article presents a historical and current overview of the complexity of the use of genetically modified insects and their use in agricultural practices. The purpose of the article was to explore the limitation of genetically modified insect control methods and examine the usefulness of the mathematical modeling techniques used to do so. The authors of this review present a thematic paradigm in which genetics and ecology, as well as other fields of study, play an important role in their theoretical analysis. The authors summarized some of the methods, the first of which being sterile insect technique. Sterile insect technique involves the current practice of mass rearing insects of an artificial diet, causing irradiation and also damage to the chromosomes. The result is infertility in subsequent offspring, and there are limitations to this approach. One being that it can take a long time to distribute in a population, as demonstrated in the article, sometimes up to a decade. Another limitation is that there is no guarantee that the mutant types will not just mate with each other as opposed to the desired outcome of mating with the wild types. Another method, the incompatible insect technique, relies on infecting insects with bacteria. This method is problematic and it is difficult to separate the males from the females, but another method that has been used in the past. The authors of this review proposed that mathematical modeling can help determine various outcomes of these strategies, considering many factors such as late versus early lethal insect releases. So will the insects die before they breed? That's the question. Density dependent. So how dense is that area that they're releasing these insects in, with insects already, and then also how many are they releasing, and how will that have an effect on the insect population. So there are lots of variables in there, and they kind of discuss modeling techniques to kind of figure out what the best ratio is. And then so they're also looking at critical thresholds and tipping points. So they demonstrate in their article that one study looked at releasing 1.193 males per female, actually was statistically significantly different than releasing 1.2 males per female in the insect population. And then they also threw in, the control of not releasing any, and then also releasing 10 males per female, each of which had drastically different outcomes. So this is important because the goal is to not have too many pests, but still not remove them from the ecosystem. And so this is actually a prime example of how genetics and ecology play an important role in the theoretical analysis. Ultimately, strategies for pest control are started using statistical analysis and then carried out in small trials in the lab, and then small field applications, and then onto larger, more commercial applications if it's efficacious to do so. A further examination of this topic suggests that combining the previously mentioned methods of sterile insect techniques along with transgenic crops is likely to be better than just using transgenic crops alone. So transgenic crops is genetically modifying the crop to produce a toxin. That toxin has an effect on the pests, presumably no effect on whatever the crop is being used for, whether it's for human consumption or whether it's for livestock being fed from it. So they didn't really talk about that much, but they did talk about how combining those two strategies would undoubtedly produce a better outcome than just doing either of them alone. And then, so again, with that, there are many potential variables in terms of density dependence, susceptibility, and resistance, all of which play an important role in creating the desired outcome. And finally, the review examines how CRISPR modified insects may play a role in this field, but it is unknown what effect this might have on the long-term fitness or impacts of a target organism. So there might be other impacts on the population that might not be desired, or there might be impacts that that are exacerbated by a nearby plot, or there are just so many variables, and that's why this mathematical modeling is actually really important to implement into whatever strategy is being used. And so that's kind of where the authors conclude, is that the subject matter is an interdisciplinary approach, and that it goes beyond science to include other elements such as governmental regulations, as well as social and ethical elements as well. So my opinion on the article is that the authors did a very good job kind of summarizing each of those small areas. I did not feel like they put a lot of emphasis on the mathematical modeling portion of their purpose of the article. They did discuss its implications and how important it is, but they did not get deep into that. Granted, I think that the article served its purpose in kind of just giving a brief review of these are the different methods that are being proposed, and then they're proposing that more of the genetically modified, such as using CRISPR, should definitely use all of these approaches, consider using these approaches, and the mathematical modeling of further approaches should be used when developing pest-resistant insects. Insects that are resistant or susceptible. So just a matter of finding that balance in the ecosystem.